Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I need to get the link to this. Link. Video link. Copy. No. Oh, crap. Okay. Copy. You can probably just do them on the counter. Okay. And then I need to send this right now. It should be. So I shared the live stream. It's on right now. I'm going to go here and make sure it's working. Okay. Yes, it's working. Good, good, good. Okay. I sent. Yes, it's working. Oh, no. Good, good, good. Okay. I sent. Yes. Oh, dear. I sent myself a link to it so I could try it from my tablet and make sure it was working. Okay, I need to turn this off. I'm so sorry if anybody is watching this already. And just get all up in the camera. Very wonderful. Okay. Oh goodness, I hope this works good. I just have to like put it on the tripod backwards because it won't, for some reason, it only will let me use my front facing camera. So, hope. Okay, that should. So I reserved the clubhouse, but there are still people who can like go use the gym. So there may be people who are coming through, but it shouldn't be too disruptive. Okay. It says like we'll be starting soon or something. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm glad it seems to be working. It could stop at any time. So, not that it could stop at any time, but I'm trying to be wary of it. So while you are doing your portions, you're coming first, yes. While you're doing your portion, I will monitor the chat on my tablet, yes. And then I'll raise my hands for people. I'm kind of organizing up into two different subtopics, I guess, and after each one, there's like, okay, so that's nice. You know, personal, you know, stories of, you know, like, I'm sure it'd be good. I learned a lot about. Yeah, preparing the event meetings and stuff. But, yeah. Okay. So I can see that beforehand, like the questions or comments, like write it down, save it, as well as like time. Yeah, I'll do that. I just find if it's not, if people don't know ahead of time, like there's gonna be a set aside time for it, it would just take a long time. Yeah. Everything's going on, God, you guys have started up there, yeah? Yep, the first one was the last one. Let it go. Did you end up meeting me for that one mention? For what? You asked me a little while ago if I'd be available. Certainly, because you said you might have a conflict. Yeah, it's not very much conflict, but if you'd like to do something. Is this with this music or? Yeah. I need to look at the, are they just one weekend? No, it's two, for this is. I questioned my past self for doing that, but I'm letting it be my future self as well. Sometimes you never know you've overextended yourself till it's too late. Yeah. All right, phone, don't poop out on me now. I hope Paige comes, she designed things. I bet you will. I wonder if maybe people will be late. I'm anticipating that, like maybe to start a little late. I do have to skedaddle right when it's over though, because. Do you want me to take pictures right now then? Oh, sure. I'm gonna make my car really fast and grab my iPad. Okay. I brought my boots for moving cars, but now I'm. Oh. Take the pictures of your phone and send them to me because my phone is doing this. Sorry, no, I didn't think of that. Nobody is on. Also, you're coordinating with one person working right today. I know, that's cute. Oh, she might be. You want to run? Yeah, sorry. Oh, it's not Paige. Nice to meet you. Have to see wherever. I moved this one since right. Yeah.
Is that Aurora or Aurora? Aurora.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, there's some people here. We're just waiting for people to get here in person, but yeah, hang tight. Thank you. All right. Are they okay there? Ron's trying to get started. I don't think. What do you want most? So like, where are you? Okay. Okay, I don't have any pictures of you with the park because I never leave my kids on the park, so I was like, I should take some. That's probably good. Yeah, okay, I'll send it to you. Thank you. I'm moving.
You got like muffins and grapes over here, please help yourself. And then, oh my goodness, so good. Congratulations. Oh, well, thank you. Oh, thank you. Are you hanging in there okay? Oh, you know. The usual. You're your first trimester. Yeah. Yeah, 12 weeks. Oh my gosh. Doesn't really. I feel like it's gotten better each time and I'm around more, so.
Yeah. I don't know why that is. We have to get words to come.
Yeah. Right now, I'm like, either like, yeah, or thinking something. So this is an exchange.
I mean, it stopped here, but I wonder.
Yeah,
It's probably hard. You guys are prepared. I just put a little thing in the stream for people to.
When I left, I left because of the, yeah, and it had just kind of started.
Do you want, are you gonna get up and, yeah, introduce?
Yeah, I'll get up and walk everybody and then.
Maybe, or are you also gonna introduce you?
Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, the person who is talking, no one wants to introduce themselves. No.
Yeah, it can go weird. Oh, someone called me. Oh, Rachel. Oh, geez. Hey, Laura, could you call Rachel for me? I can give you her number if you guys have. She just tried to call me. I assume she's trying to like find it.
Hello. It's nice that your place has a dog park. We are. Are you in the door? Oh, she said someone let them in, but they must be at the wrong place. You must be at the wrong place. Edgewater? Is it Edgewater? Yeah, I'm gonna talk to it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't live here. I don't know.
Okay, did you? Yeah, so sometimes will take you weird places. So yeah, it's actually the one across from the vine. Yeah, like across the road. Yes, Edgewater. Yep. Yeah, you'll drive in and the clubhouse is like right there. You go in, it's like a cool Uh-huh. All right, awesome. See you. Bye. The problem with this area is that it's, oops, I have to, this problem with this area is that it's like somewhat new, and so if you put it in di different map apps, it'll take you to like different places. Plus, if you like put Orem instead of Vineyard, it'll take you somewhere else, and like it's a headache. Every time I have like new students or someone like coming over for something, I have to like go out of my house and like find them and like be like, here, come this way. Pretty much a little bit. Just the area. Okay, I need to put my phone on do not disturb so it stops.
How many people did you have online?
Some people came, and then when I said that we were waiting to start, some people left. There's supposed to be like 4 other people coming in person, so I'll try to get some. Be having to run open the door of people while the workshop's going.
You have lots of dance recitals. Your dance mode. Well, why don't you one recital? Oh, my girls are I got them in classes on the same day of the week. So their recital is the same. Well, that's very nice because we buy tickets to go. Yeah. My oldest is in center stage youth performers. And we do more money here. So yeah, that's actually kind of a small goal. That could be a huge tech group. Thankfully, all their stuff is like less than 10 minutes. I'm just getting my daughter started in dance. It's like my dream come true. I love it. When we were in Lehigh, I had one of my girls at the new dance studio. They're looking around still. To be in the same class with her little cousin. So we actually didn't go to center stage in Orem. Okay. That's where her cousin was going. So nice. Yeah. The things that you designed. Thank you. It was really, really easy. Yeah. You could totally. Well, I'm starting to get the hang of Canva. I've done a couple things in it. Yeah, I'm nothing special. I just but thank you. And it was helpful to be able to take that thing off of my plate. Even the little things just add up. Good. I'm really glad you liked it. Laura, can I use your phone to call? Yes, Brett. Well, I still have 2 more. I'll just let you know. Okay. We're about to start helping yourselves to the muffins and grapes. You guys are hungry.
Okay, let me check. I think this is just about everybody who is gonna come in person, so. So wherever you like. Yeah. All right, well, we'll go ahead and start. Bethany, maybe will come, I don't know. She's the last one that we need, so. I'm gonna send out. I'm gonna send a quick email. Okay. There we go. Okay, cool. All right, thanks everyone for coming. People who are here and online. Sorry, I had a little bit of a late start. I think there was delays with the snow and Saturday, so that is fine. I'm Bridget Jackson. I'm the secretary of the Utah chapter of the American Heart Society, and today me and Laura Neal will be doing this workshop about gig contracts and etiquette. This is the first installment of a series that we are wanting to do this year for gigging harpists as like a professional development kind of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Laura because she's going to be going first for her portion of the workshop. So I have a little bio about her. Laura grew up in a small town in the northernmost part of California, Palo Cedro. She started piano at age 8, but quit cold turkey after 2 harp lessons at age 14. She minored in harp performance at BYU and graduated in 2010. She and her husband Matthew have been married for 13 years and have 4 kids, daughters McKenna, Holland, Charlotte, and their son Sterling. They also have a 6-month-old Doberman Pinscher puppy named Timber, and he is a handful. When she is not practicing or performing, she loves to plan her family's trips and adventures as well as edit their home videos together each month, something that she's been doing for 7 years. One of Laura's bucket list items is to swim with whales in Tonga. So take it away, Laura.
Thank you, Bridget. It's always weird to like write stuff about yourself, but okay, are you gonna be able to monitor that? I want to make sure it's not too echoey. Yeah. You think they can hear okay? Can you guys all hear okay over there yonder in the internet? World? It's a little echoey in here, so let me just really quick. Oh, Bethany tried to call me. All right. Cool. Okay. So if everybody can hear okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to monitor. Okay. They said audio is good. So whoever isn't presenting is going to monitor the stream chat. So you guys can put questions in there and one of us will be able to relay them for you. So that's kind of how it's going to work. Thanks, Bridget. You can say how. Yeah. So I kind of got my part broken into 2 kind of subtopics. And at the end of each one, I'm going to open it up for any questions or comments. If you've had experiences that kind of feed into what I'm going to talk about, please share. I learn the most from other people's experiences as well as my own, so I would love to open it up for that. I'm going to start by talking about gig etiquette. The first part is kind of about knowing your venue, so it's not necessarily day of, but leading up to a gig, especially if it's your first time playing at this particular venue. I've learned some really important lessons the hard way. One of which being a few years ago, I was contracted to play a wedding ceremony on top of a mountain at a ski resort. And I was told the guests would be taking the ski lifts up to the ceremony. Obviously, I couldn't do that with the harp. All I found out was that there was a little dirt road that I could take off the beaten path that would get me up to where the ceremony was. And that there was like a little cabin up there that I'd be kind of setting up at. That was all I got. Hindsight, I should have asked so many more questions. There's a lot more I could have done, and I'll share that with you guys. But when I got there, thankfully I left early enough, but I found this really, really rough dirt back road that I barely made it. It's like for ATVs, right? Not like a minivan. Barely made it up there. Get to the cabin, and I was playing on the like kind of the deck that went around it. Well, it wasn't a solid deck. right? It's like these jaggedy metal railings so that the snow can melt and fall through. This is not a stable place to put the harp in. So it's like teetering like this. And I just was, you don't want to feel like that right before you're playing somebody's wedding. So I was really stressed. And the wedding planners were looking all through the cabin trying to find something I can put underneath the harp. I think I ended up using my cases like underneath the harp. It was not, it was not very professional. I just wasn't very prepared. Hindsight, I should have called ahead to, whoever coordinates weddings at that ski resort and said, listen, I'm bringing my harp up. This is where the ceremony is. Do you have any pictures you can send me? Can anyone go up sometime and get a quick video? Just because it was, 2 hours away. There was no way I was going to drive up there just to look around for 10 minutes, which is ideally what you would do if you're playing somewhere kind of more local that you've never been. You can call ahead if you want and reach out to the people there at the venue, say, I'm playing a wedding here for the first time. I'd love to come by and meet you guys and take a look at where I'm playing. You want to look for things like power outlets. If you are plugging in sound equipment, you want to look for, if it's an outdoor thing, what's the shade situation? A lot of times people will just assume you'll play out in the sun in the middle of the day, but depending on your preferences, you might not want to do that, especially if it's a longer event. So you want to go and see what the shade situation is like. That way you can get in touch with your bride or groom and say, hey, listen, I've been to the venue. It's going to be way too much direct sunlight. So I need you to provide some kind of shade for me, whether it's like an umbrella or something. But I don't schlep that stuff around. I leave that up to the people who hired me to come and play at their event. But I do want to show you guys a quick picture of, it's not a great picture, of this event that I played on this mountaintop. The view, I'm sure, was gorgeous, but that was my view. I was incredibly unprepared and just set up where I could, and I couldn't see the ceremony. I don't know if people online can see that. I had a giant post in front of me, and bride and groom are right on the other side of it. It's definitely one that I will never, ever forget. And I think those types of things are the ones that you learn a lot from. So hopefully me imparting that experience will be helpful to somebody here. So prepare yourself that way when you show up to the gig, you know where you're going to be, you know that there'll be shade, if you need power, you know where it's going to be. Sometimes if there isn't an outlet close by, I'll have like an extension cord in my car, or a lot of times they'll have you maybe set up next to other people that are doing like sound for the microphones. They'll have access to power. There's lots of options, but you feel so much more confident going into a gig, especially in a new place, if you've been there beforehand and you've kind of got the lay of the land a little bit. Going to the venue ahead of time is also a great opportunity to hand out your business cards to the venue staff. I typically don't do that day of because I'm being paid to be there for somebody else's wedding, but it's a great time to go get to know the event staff and give them a few business cards. And I've been referred to weddings because of the venue said, oh, we've had this harpist play here before. Here's your business card. You can give her a call. So it's a really great time to network and get yourself out there a little bit. Okay, so that's kind of, that for me was a big one, just getting to know your venue. And I want to open up, are there any comments or questions or experiences that you guys have had that you feel would be helpful for everybody else to hear about?
I have a story.
Oh, let's hear
it. When I do it, because it has to do with.
Oh, is it on your
too,
too?
but it's
Okay.
the same type of deal.
Yeah.
There are many horror stories. So yeah, especially around here in Utah, where it's you get asked to do like a lot of like locations that aren't as common, like in the mountains and stuff. You'll want to try, if you can, go up ahead of time and like scout out the area, because it can be just the Wild West in the mountains and trying to move a harp. So, but yeah, it goes along with just like asking the people who are hiring you. A lot of times, the event planner, or if it's like for a wedding, the couple will go up and they'll look at their venue beforehand, because that's like what they're doing when they're choosing it. So you can ask them as well and just make sure that the expectations are clear. But yeah.
Yeah, that's going to definitely lead into contracts, making sure that they know what your expectations are as a person who's hauling this giant instrument around. That mountaintop wedding I played, it was those big chunky pieces of bark everywhere. And by the time I like got it from the car to the cabin and up the steps, I was just this hot, sweaty mess. So fun times.
There's
Yeah.
a
Yes.
comment in the chat that says, I had to do a wedding once and I had to go up 3 spiral staircases. LOL. I think that was Jen. I can't see the names. I can only
Yeah.
see like the YouTube names, but I think that's Janet.
Oh my gosh.
But
I know some people who put in their contracts, sorry, like that they would charge extra if there's more than a certain amount of steps, like a piano mover does, right? They charge like
or don't
$10
do
per
stairs
step.
at all.
Or just
Mine-
skip stairs.
I say that I can move it up the maximum 6 stairs other than that.
Yeah, sorry.
Do you guys have a favorite or a preferred like platform or like what you use to have flats? You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
because I use
Yeah.
like wood, you know, like plywood and then like the carpets where I'm like, "Ugh," I don't know,
Yes.
just kind of playing around with like what looks professional, but will also protect my harp and enable me to play well.
I have found a really nice, just rug that I can roll up.
Mm.
That's a really just like a neutral color. So in photos, you know, if they're wedding, I don't have
It
this
doesn't clash.
big patterning thing underneath the instrument, but that probably would have still worked for this particular event that I played,
Mm.
because it's thick enough that
You have a bit of a buffer.
yeah, that I would be somewhat stable. But you know, and then I also have a small one in the car for when I take the harp. I do now. I didn't at the time, but just for when you take your harp out and put it on the ground, it's nice to have something between your harp and the ground.
Yeah.
If all else fails, you can use that. Like if you need something underneath you, and I mean that's another thing I have in my contract. I need a solid flat surface.
Yeah.
That is now in my contract.
I
Wasn't at the time.
I make the people who are hiring provide the service because for me, I don't have enough room in my car to load the thing of plywood. Most of the time they do the plywood and the rug and it's fine. But I make something that's their responsibility, not me, because I only have so much room in my car. I already have all
Especially if
this
you're
stuff.
doing sound equipment and
Yeah.
like your bag, and just, yeah, other things.
Yeah, it's their responsibility.
Okay.
I've seen people include the dimensions for the surface. I think it's good to be specific, you know, how many feet it needs to be.
Yeah. So that's something to be aware of. Say you go to this venue to kind of scope it out and you realize, oh, they want me like in this really tight corner where there's clearly not going to be enough space, or like I'm right in the middle of a huge, like high traffic area. And people don't typically think of those things. You know, they just think, oh, I want harp music, and that's it ends there because it's so beautiful. And that's all they think
I'm
of.
not familiar. I like
Yes.
the dimensions.
So going ahead of time will help prevent those little things. Are there any other comments or questions?
Not
Or
yet.
just kind of, okay.
But that's good to know. If you had problems or people like, yeah, totally, we'll take care of
They
the
will
surface.
do it, yeah. And
That's
if it's
cool.
in your contract, they have to do it.
Right. Well, for sure. I was just curious if you had like any like push. I was like, oh, this is
Yeah.
starting to feel like a lot to
I mean, I've had
accommodate.
some people who like kind of drag their feet, but I'm like, it
That's
is
what I
it
need.
is. Ask someone else that.
Yeah.
Not
Okay. No, that's good to know.
But yeah.
Okay, so we move on to just kind of day of gig etiquette. I like to arrive an hour early. Keep in mind that time of day if you're gonna hit traffic. I like to arrive an hour early because I hate being rushed. I hate having to sit down and play all sweaty gross. If I'd had time at that other wedding, I would have been able to go in the bathroom, clean myself up a little bit, like fan off, let it cool down, whatever, and like mentally get back in the game, right? So I like to arrive an hour early because then it also gives you a buffer for random stuff that comes up, right? It really stinks to play a gig feeling rushed, feeling stressed, and just that mental load. You want to be able to sit down, feel prepared, feel confident, comfortable, and just be able to play and focus on the wedding, right? Because that's what you're being paid there to do. When I get there, I like to check in with the coordinator, whether it's the wedding planner, whether it's somebody at the venue, whether it's the bride's mom, cousin, somebody. I make sure I get a contact beforehand. I do not like talking to the bride on the day out. That's not what she wants to be doing. So check in with the coordinator just to triple check your location, make sure something hasn't changed. A lot of times they'll have like dress rehearsal the night before and they might change their mind on where they want things. Triple check on those things because you want it to be how the bride and everybody has pictured it being, and plans change sometimes. You want to confirm where everyone will start the procession, assuming you're playing, I'm so sorry, we're assuming we're playing a wedding ceremony right now, because usually those are the ones that require a lot more coordination. So double check where everyone will be coming from for the procession. You know, and beforehand, when I'm doing the consultation, I like to ask, you know, how many groomsmen are there, bridesmaids and flowers? Like, I want to get the whole wedding party so that I know visually, okay, they've all come through. And you also want to find out who's going to be cueing you. A lot of times it's the person who's officiating. They're kind of standing up there already, and they'll be like, okay, it's time for the bride. And you can coordinate with them, like, I need a head nod or something, a little hand wave. That way, you know, if they want a different song, usually they do, you can transition into that. They'll say, everybody stand for the bride and do the whole thing and get goosebumps and everybody's crying. It's great. You also, my personal preference, before I unload anything from my car, if the event has not been paid in full, I talk to my contact person and find out who has the envelope before I unload anything. I've heard stories of harpists who just assume like, oh, they'll pay me after, or, you know, I'm waiting to hear from somebody, and you unload and you play the gig, and then you're just, it's not fun to have to try to
before and
pull strings.
they're having a party, or, you know, then you're
Yes.
like, this is great.
Yes, exactly.
Also,
Exactly.
you can request your balance to be paid ahead of time.
Yes.
Which I require 30 days before.
30 days, I don't like that.
Because like it's usually if I have a bunch of weddings at once, I will usually take 2 weeks to prepare for that like specific one, unless I have like a special request. And then that way it gives me plenty of notice. If they like cancel it or something, and the balance is non-refundable after 30 days. So it's like
Because I have planned booked the gig and may have turned others down.
yeah, that
So-
date was booked, and so at that point, it's, you know, if you whether or not you do the wedding, that date wouldn't have been available.
So do you do a deposit or do you just do the full balance 30 days before?
I do a deposit of $100 when they hire me, even if it's, you know, a year in advance or something. And then that basically reserves their date, and then the balance in full is due. So the $100 goes towards the
Right.
total amount. But then the balance, which is the rest of it, gets paid 30 days before. And you could do 2 weeks. Like some people are uncomfortable doing 30 days. Because it can sometimes feel like asking for a lot, but that's up to you. Some people do 2 weeks, but some people do 50 days, but I like 30 days.
The idea of in advance. It again, like when it comes to the day of, it's one less thing that you have to be worrying about. taking care of.
There's a comment in here from Janet again. I always ask now what's the last thing the officiant will say before the exit.
I was just about to get to that. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a lot of times they have like, you may now kiss the bride and groom, but then sometimes they want to like keep talking.
Yeah,
And
I have that.
it's really awkward because you're like, oh, just kidding. And, you know, then you're like, well, do I keep playing? And how long is he going to be talking? So again, checking in with the officiant to get that cue. We're ready to start the whole ceremony, and we're ready for the bride. And then also find out, okay, what's the last thing that you say? Is their kiss it? And then he says, you know, now presenting Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so. You start your recessional music and they all go down. So that's a good thing to plan ahead of time. And that's really not something you can do until the day of.
Yeah, Janet said, usually it's now I present to you, but one wedding he said, yo, you're out of here.
I love that. But did he know ahead of time if that's what he was going to say? That's so funny. That's super funny. Okay, so then I usually start prelude 30 minutes before the ceremony start time. Sometimes, like, there's no guests there yet, but the event staff are kind of setting things up, and I'll play because they enjoy it, and I'm there, and I've been paid to play, so why not? Unless you've agreed on something else with the bride. If nobody is showing up until like 10 minutes before, it's a really good indicator things are going to start late. So keep that in mind with your contract when it comes to gigs starting late or going into overtime, things like that.
Now, are you going to get more detail about pricing? I was kind of curious. Or speak about like rehearsal, you know, when they do like a run through with everything.
Oh, like if they hire you to also be.
Yes, just how you guys like.
You should charge us.
Oh, for sure. But I was just curious how you navigate all that or overtime.
Yeah.
But I've only been to one wedding where they started on time. And the one that was the longest was 45 minutes late.
Oh my gosh.
So
Yikes. The mountaintop wedding that I played at, they wanted me to play Canon and D for the whole recession. And I have a part of that song that I like to play because I got lots of glissandos and then you kind of launch into the big grandiose part of it for when the bride walks down. Well, I get the nod from the wedding planners. Okay, they're ready. So I start playing, everyone gets quiet, no one comes out, no one comes out. I go through like the first 2 pages 5 or 6 times, like just on repeats before I got really great practice in, before they finally started the procession. And afterwards, one of the guests came up, she's like, I didn't even realize that was live music. It sounded like a CD playing. Thanks. That's a great compliment. But oh my gosh, yeah. So stuff like that is totally out of your control.
Yeah.
Just be prepared for it. But
Extra music.
yeah.
I can play the same stuff twice, but I was buffer.
Mhm. Yeah, but I mean, at that point, I was like, okay, we're starting the processional now. But then no one came out. It was super awkward, but it just kept going. It was great. Are there any other questions or comments that you guys have? Just kind of about like day of etiquette.
Yeah, page 12, sorry, this is a day of.
Or just, yeah, you're fine.
So, I am wondering, so I have a contract, right? It's just a piece. I've been wondering about, like, I want to do digital. I want to be able to email them.
like a DocuSign
Yeah.
type thing.
Yeah, and I am not techie. And so, does anyone do that? And can they come here?
Like a DocuSign. I think you just make an account with, I think there's
Is there free
the
option?
company's DocuSign. I'm not sure if there's a free one. I don't know that, but
I think you can send like editable PDFs.
Okay.
There is a way to do that.
Yeah. So, like,
YouTube could probably help you.
or Google has
Yeah.
it. Adobe has it.
Right.
I don't, it's
Yeah.
probably not free, but.
Because I want to be able to, like, I just email them and have them sign it and then file it away.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to.
But even if you could just do something like that.
Yeah, that's what I do.
They can choose to digitally, like, sign it with a little drawing tool, or they can just type their name, or they can print it out, sign it, scan it, and send it to me.
Yeah.
Those are all, those all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
I do have a question. Rats. Like,
Yes.
you guys ever try to.
well, when I do my like consultation with the bride and groom, that's one of the questions I asked. What would you like me to wear? Do you want me to wear concert black? Or would you like me to coordinate with your wedding colors? A lot of brides like you in wedding colors because then it looks nice in the pictures, especially if they have like pinks and lighter colors. Having black, you know, up at the front especially, doesn't always look great in pictures or videos.
I've got an easy black suit and then just give you a tie wear.
Oh, there you go. Lucky.
That's nice.
So,
Yeah, I say that if I have something that we can match, I'll wear that, but otherwise I'll wear black. I won't like go buy a new dress just because
I love to.
unless they want.
You're like,
to pay
I'm
for
not
it.
being experienced.
Unless they want to pay for it.
Yeah, I had a friend who played at a wedding that was steampunk themed. And like the guests and everybody were in like steampunk. So she got to put together. Yeah, she got to put together. It was like head to toe cool, like the hat and like it was very cool. But there's a lot of things that you can take care of in your pre-gig consultation with the bride and groom. That's definitely one of them. That wasn't something I planned on covering, but does anybody have any input really quick? I mean, you want to talk about like dates, if they have the wedding party together yet, if they have song requests. I don't charge extra for song requests unless I have to like purchase the music. And if it's a lot, I might have them cover that, which is, that's in my contract. I should just pull it up in my Google Docs. What things do you like to, in like a pre-gig consultation that kind of helps get you more prepared for that day?
Yeah, so I have a form that I print out for them and I sit down with them and put it in front of me too. And it goes over all the day of contacting. So it goes over some stuff that's already in the contract, but it goes over the timing, how they want it to go. It goes over their song lists. I do charge extra for requests, but it goes over their song list. It goes over the colors. It goes over when I'm going to be there, so they have the expectation. It goes over the cute, like, when for me to leave kind of thing. Like, it just covers all of that stuff and it's in a document. And so we talk about the stuff in the consultation. I write it down and then I type it up and I have the portions highlighted that they still need to get back to me on because they don't I don't say you have to decide right then. but
Yeah, a lot of times these consultations will happen like honestly years before.
Yeah.
A lot of things they haven't figured out yet.
Yeah, because like I'll slay them some stuff and they're like, oh, we have our top 3. I write it down and then I highlight that section and then they have to get that back to me within like 2 weeks. And then. that
That's
way
another
it's all
great
written down.
opportunity to get your contact person's information as well.
Yeah.
Because as the gig gets closer, that's probably gonna be the person that you're talking to if you have to set the contact.
So I was wondering about, so I did a wedding where I played the ceremony and then I have to wait, but I had to be there, for the dinner.
Right.
So how do you guys navigate like time where you're required to be there and you can't leave?
Right.
But you're not.
I just charge half my rate as just sitting around.
Because it's still your time.
Yeah.
You're still there and you can't be doing anything else.
You're not working though, so that's,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's a really good question.
I like that. Cause I sat there for a while and I was like, whoa.
I remember when I did the ceremony and then they like did like toasts and watched a little video and stuff. And they told me to go back in the kitchen and have dinner. Like it was like a cater thing.
yeah, usually if I have to stay beyond like the ceremony, I will ask if they can feed me. Because at that point you're having to stay to wait
They
your
can
break
stay.
and then you have to play for the dinner or whatever, and then they just don't eat then. It's not weird to ask.
No.
They feed their photographer, they feed
Right.
everybody.
Yeah, okay, that's good, cause I wouldn't have found that.
Janet said, we had to play an hour of prelude music for one wedding because the groom fell asleep in the hot tub. Also, Janet asked if we can get copies of sample contracts. I'm going to, when it's my portion, I'm gonna send everybody, I've collected a folder of a bunch of sample contracts. I'm gonna send you all to look at. I didn't print them off because I don't want to waste paper, but, and then Janet also asked, how long of a break does everybody take during a reception? I assume that's like per hour or whatever.
Yeah.
I do like 10 to 15 minutes each hour.
That's what I've got in my contract as well. Usually reception's a 2-hour event.
Yeah.
Usually, so between that, yeah.
Or if it's just 1 hour, then like the break is between the ceremony and the reception.
Yes. Yeah.
That kind of thing.
And a lot of times too, less so in Utah, but it does happen. They'll have a cocktail hour after the ceremony and the reception. So those are all things you need to like build into your pricing model.
I actually get paid I actually get asked to play for cocktail hours more than reception.
Really? I would prefer that. It's reception.
Yeah, and the cocktail hours are right after. So.
Yeah. Okay, well, that was the end of my spiel. I really want to hand it over to Bridget because like contracts is really why we're all here. I just threw my thing in there because I wanted to. But I'm going to introduce Bridget really quick. Bridget grew up in Las Vegas and she's been a harpist for over 17 years. She graduated from UVU in 2017. I feel so old. I feel so old. With a bachelor's of music and harp performance. She's been married to her husband, Brett, for 6 years. They have 2 dogs, a golden doodle pit bull mix named Gunther, which is super cute, and a pit bull named Chance, who's a new addition, right? Newer addition?
No.
Okay. Both of whom you guys adopted them both, right? That's wonderful. When she is not harping, Bridget likes to spend time with her family, be outdoors, cook delicious food, and practice yoga. One of Bridget's bucket list items is to visit Japan. All right. Take it away, Bridget.
Do you want me to, let me send you.
Send me the
link. Yeah, sorry, let me do this really quick. She needs to, yeah, I need my tablet to look at my notes and she needs to monitor the chat. So let me just.
So about that last comment, who can fall asleep in a hot tub? Right?
You get too hot.
I don't know. Sauna,
I'm
maybe.
just gonna email
You're just sitting there. Maybe it's on sleep.
All
Hot
right,
tub?
1 second. Okay, I'm sending you the link to Laura. I'm doing it to Laura.neal.
Yeah.
Alright, sending it right now. Okay, just like turn down your volume so that you can't hear the. Okay, so Janet asked, do you have the bride or groom sign the contract? So I'll cover that a little bit. It's, so in the way that I do it, the purchaser is, I call the hiring party. So it could be the bride or groom, or it could be the coordinator or their parents if their parent is paying for it or something like that. So I just designate it as hiring party, and that covers whoever it is that is doing the paying, because the bride and groom aren't always doing the paying. So it's the responsibility of the hiring party to, if they're not the bride and groom, to like relay things onto the bride and groom because it's the bride and groom's stuff. So, all right, let me pull up my thing really quick. I have an outline here to help me stay organized because I'm not good at organizing my thoughts. I'm gonna exit out of the stream on my tablet. Do you have it up? Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, so I want to start this off by saying I'm not legal counsel. I am a harpist who's been doing this for a while, and that is all. So if you want like a legal counsel to help you write your contract, you can totally hire someone to help you do it. So that's just a little disclaimer. So first of all, why do you need a contract? So a contract will establish expectations and protections for you and the person who's hiring you. They help establish terms and conditions that both parties are beholden to, and they make sure that everybody's on the same page no matter what it is, so that everything, all the expectations are clear and everybody can agree on them. And contracts protect you, so no matter what kind of event you do or how simple your contract may be, it will still withhold itself or hold itself up, sustain itself. There you go. So what makes a document a contract and how is it legally binding? So I got this off of the internet, so I'll read it to you. In order for a written contract to be legally binding, it must contain 4 key elements. 1 is mutual assent. All parties must agree to the terms of the contract and must display their signature on the contract to certify their agreement. 2 is consideration. The agreed upon action or business dealing, typically something of value in which a party is not already entitled to, must be reasonable and fair for all parties. So that's just saying you're providing a service that someone isn't like entitled to. So there you go. Capacity, all parties of the written contract must be of sound mind and able to make the agreement set forth within the agreement. And then 4, legality, the action set forth in a contract must be legal according to state and federal law. So those are the 4 things. Basically, if you put something in writing and 2 people sign it and it's for exchanging some kind of good or service, both parties are of sound mind signing it and it's legal, it is legally binding. Even if you don't have like a lawyer sign it or it's not created by a lawyer, you can create your own contract and it's legally binding.
Doesn't have to be notarized.
Doesn't have to be notarized. You can if you want, but it doesn't have to. Any questions on that section so far? Okay, awesome. Okay, so what is included in a contract? So really quick, right now I have to do it from my phone because I'm not logged into the Harp Society Gmail on my tablet. So 1 second. So yeah, the people who are online should have it already. It's in the email that I sent that has the link to this stream. Okay. So what is included in a contract? When you guys get that, you can pull it up. Feel free to look at the examples I included. So I included an example of mine. I included some of the harpist friends that I have, and I included some that I just found online. So you can see a variety of examples that you, because there's no, right or wrong way to do it as long as you're putting everything in there that you want to be covered. So what is included in a contract? And these are not in order of importance or anything. These are just stuff that came out of my brain while I was writing this. So event details, make sure all details of the event are outlined in the contract, the date, the time, the location, contact information of the people who are hiring you. The service to be provided. So if you are only playing for the ceremony, you say that it's for the ceremony. If you're only playing for the reception, you say it's for the reception. So that way it's there on paper what it is you're playing for. You can't show up and then be like, hey, we said you were playing for the cocktail hour too. It'd be like, no, it's in the contract. So you want to be very clear of what it is, the service that you're providing. And you can include specifics such as song requests, dress code, etc. in your contract if you want. I personally don't. I use that. That kind of stuff is I save for the consultation, kind of like how Laura was talking about. But you can put it in there if you want to. Any questions about event details in the contract? right, awesome. Then next is the pay, the big monies. The deposit amount you want to put in there. I take the deposit at the same time that I take the contract, so that a deposit is required upon booking. You'll see this in my contract. And the deposit can be used as a soft hold while the contract is being completed, because sometimes it takes them time to figure out the details with their venue and stuff as far as providing the flat surface and the shade and everything. So the deposit acts as a soft hold for their date, but their date isn't booked until I get the contract, even if that's months after they paid the deposit. And sometimes that happens when you get weddings that are like a year out, which so like I have some right now that are later this year. I haven't gotten their contract back, but they paid their deposit and they're, working on figuring things out, or they aren't sure what segment they want the heart for. They just know that they want the heart. So they're like, oh, we can't decide if we want it for our ceremony or reception. While they're figuring out those details, I use the deposit as a soft hold, but I will not show up to the event unless the contract is signed. And preferably, I like to get that signed months before the event if possible. But I kind of give some wiggle room when it's like a year out, because I'm like, they're trying to figure out more stuff. The deposit holds the date. The contract, I make sure that I get within a reasonable time. So, no, you're fine. Oh yeah, deposit is non-refundable. Balance is refundable up to 30 days before the event.
Deposit is not refundable, you said?
Yes. Yep. The deposit is what holds that date. As soon as they pay it, they cannot get it back. And this is totally normal. They do this for their photographer. They do this for their venue, especially the venues.
How much do you normally charge for deposit?
I only do $100. Some people do half the balance, but I find it's for some people that can be kind of tricky, especially if you are charging big monies. It can be hard to pay that much upfront, especially if it's like a year out. They're like, well, I don't know what can happen. So to me, $100 is okay for holding a date.
Especially that it's not.
Yeah, and it's non-refundable. If they cancel the date, then you just got $100 free for no reason, kind of thing. So the deposit acts as a way for them to hold that date and for you to reserve it so that nobody else can ask about it. Now, if I had a date that someone reserved with a deposit, but they hadn't gotten their contract to me yet, and someone else asked me about that same date, I would let the first people know, hey, get me that contract because I have your date held, but if you don't give me the contract, I have these other people. So it can kind of work as like a nudge because you need the contract ahead of time. Yeah, Paige.
Let's talk about that because, like, years ago, 10 years ago, I had someone else to play a wedding and I didn't do it. And I agreed to do it and started preparing for it. And then
yeah, so you prepared for no reason.
Yeah, I hadn't been paid anything. I hadn't no idea. And I remember being really like bummed about that because I was counting on it and had prepared and then I got absolutely nothing. So yeah, the deposit is great.
Yeah.
Part of what you're charging for is not just to physically be there on the day of, you're also charging for the preparation you put into it, for the new music and all of that.
And I also require, if they do special requests, since I said I do charge for them, I require them to pay that up front because even if they end up canceling the day, I still spent the time either arranging or learning the music. So they just Venmo me that, $50 or whatever, and then they've paid for that ahead of time. So even if they cancel, they can't get it back because they made me do the work. Okay, so there's the balance, the deposit, the balance, also included in your contract, of course. The pay schedule, so that's saying that the deposit is due at time of booking. The balance is due 30 days before, 2 weeks before, a day of. I don't recommend doing day of or after. I used to do like a week after, and don't do that. I've never had anyone burn me for it before, but it's just not a good idea. Plus, the week after their wedding, they're on their honeymoon or they're not thinking about it. So always try to get your money before you do the event. And then also overtime fees is what you want to include in the contract. So you can see in the example that I included, there are many different ways to do overtime. I basically set the allotted playing time, and anything over that, I charge $100 per 15 minutes. So anything that is beyond the end time that is put in the contract, I charge more. So that could be, if the ceremony goes late, but they end on time, that doesn't, so like if the ceremony starts late, but they still end on time, that's okay for me because it's within the time frame. But if the ceremony starts late and it ends up pushing them late, then that gets charged. So the end time, and you can't always accommodate overtime, and you can include that in your contract too. And you can say something like, as far as the musician does not have a conflict, I can accommodate overtime kind of thing. So if you have somewhere to be immediately after, then you can't do the overtime, obviously. So you can have something that says, as far as the musician is able to do overtime, they will at this rate, kind of thing. Any question about pay in the contract?
I'm curious, I don't know if you guys were planning on going into details with rates, because I can't remember if, you know, the survey that Marion did.
She's presenting at our last workshop, all the stuff.
Is she gonna go in the details of that? Because I am curious what, like, or what in the Utah scene, like what people are.
That's gonna be part of our the gig, and she's gonna talk about that whole survey that she did. But Bridget, if you wanna go into it.
And I don't know if you wanted to or not, if you wanted to keep it more general. I'm not.
No,
I was just curious.
I need to put my price on my website because for me, it was like, oh, well, reach out to me first and I'll tell you my prices, not to be like weird, but it varies very much on the travel. And there's so many things that go into it, but I kind of tweaked my pricing sheet so that it's more generalized. So it's like my travel fee to Salt Lake City is this, because I used to do per mile. So, but it's just any of the surrounding areas of Salt Lake City is this much. Park City is this much. So I'm going to put my price on my website, so I'm fine talking about it. I don't remember what the travel rates were because I just came up with them like a couple weeks ago. But
Yeah, I was gonna say, how did you?
I think so. For the Salt Lake one, my travel was because I live here. So my Salt Lake one was like $50 or $75, I think, and then Park City was like 125 or something. And then I charge more for ceremonies because they take more work. And I don't charge per hour for ceremonies. For background set, yeah. And then for background music, which is like cocktail hour or a corporate event or a reception, that is per hour. So it's a flat one for the first hour, and then every other hour is half that. That makes sense. And that's what I charge. And then for ceremonies, it's a flat one. So for my pedal harp, I'm actually in the process of adding my lever harp to my offering too. And then that way I can up my prices for my pedal harp offering because I think it was too low. But right now, before I changed all that, right now my pedal harp offering is $500 for ceremony. And then for background music, I think it's like $350. And then for the first hour, and then every hour after that is half that, I think. Something like that. But yeah, so if you have a pedal harp, you should charge more for it because it's harder to move and a lot. And then you should charge more for outdoor events that are in the mountains. I charge like $200 more or $250 more because it's just difficult. So you can always, there's different ways to price yourself, and it has to do with your experience and all kinds of things. So it's a good idea to pretend that you are a couple or a wedding planner or event planner and search up live music in your area and see what that is, and see, whose experience level that you find more relates to yours, or other things like that. And then that's kind of how you can base yourself off of. But Utah is a woefully undersold state in live music, and it's awful. So we need to do better at that because every other place in the world charges way more for harp music. It's insane. So don't undersell yourself, and we'll probably have that part of the workshop. Yeah.
I just lowered my rate. Someone said, "Oh, you're probably not getting." I said, and they're like, "Oh, well, you're probably not getting your rate to my max."
Who said that to you?
I'll tell you. You're good.
Okay.
But and I thought, and I appreciated that they were trying to help me, but I also was like, that just doesn't look right to me. No. You have to do what's important to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was struggling with this like last year, and my husband, he's very business minded. He was like, listen, what is it worth for you to leave your cozy house? I'm an introvert. So he's like, leave your cozy house, leave your dogs, leave me, go do something that's putting yourself outside your comfort zone that you have to prepare for, all this stuff. And what is it worth for you. So that's really what it breaks down to. Yeah.
I have thought actually opposite thing about getting enough and I think that's true, like knowing your worth and saying, this is what my service is worth. That shows revenue and how much no I
Totally.
I don't think
Mike,
Yeah.
I've only been, I'm in Oregon, I've only been playing the harp for a short amount of time, comparing with everybody else here. I'm not really trying to compare. But, I asked her how much, because I had somebody ask me how much do I play for, private events. Because I volunteered up at the hospital and I play there, frequently, once or twice a week maybe. But she says, well, you don't want to undercut other harpists in the area, and you don't want to undersell yourself, and you don't want to, So she told me, she says for background music, maybe you should, for my harp, I just have a lever harp, and she says for background music, I would do a 2 hour minimum, and then 150 for the first hour and $80 for each additional hour if you're doing just background music,
Yeah.
indoor background music.
Yeah, that's a good place to start.
And I'm like, well, that's okay, because we have to check with each other. We have to, support all the harpists here.
Yeah.
Raise everybody up. Yeah.
We kind of have to support each other in that, because if we're all charging about the same amount, then no matter which harpist they go to, they're going to get a similar.
Yeah, and nobody else, I feel like with musicians, this feels like such a touchy thing, but no other business, like, I feel like feels like that. They're like, these are my prices, this is what I charge, but because, and I'll go into this more later, because like, we are so like emotionally tied up in our work and it's such an emotional part of ourselves, sometimes it can feel like a direct attack or, being rude to you and stuff, but you really just setting your boundaries and just setting your boundaries.
And I've only been playing for 5 years.
Yeah.
A little more than 5 years, and I'm like, I can charge that much? I don't feel like I'm professional
Yes,
level
you
or
can.
anything.
Yeah.
I guess I can, so.
Janet,
I think that's who JMP is.
you charge the same rate when you're playing with another musician.
So I haven't had very much, I don't really play with other musicians for anything that often, but the only times that I have, they were a company hiring me, and so they took care of the pricing, and then they paid me what was my normal performing rate. So I'm not a good person to ask for that, because I don't do it very much, because I don't like it as much unless someone else is taking care of it for me.
Yeah, I feel like as long as it's, I mean, it hasn't been that much.
Yeah. Yeah.
David Jorgensen said, from last I know, the BYU harvest, I'll charge a flat $100 an hour. But I don't know if that's like if you're playing like receptions or what that you're saying.
I don't know. I think that's too low though.
That does.
It could be different if you're like in college and school, but I still think
Yeah.
that that's too low. That's just me.
It's too low.
You can get mad if you want, but
my question is she's still learning. And
Yeah.
she- No, but she's been asked to do this. And so like, we don't want her to have the same time, but she's not that professional about it.
yeah. And I think as far as the people who are like hiring, you understand that. And then you're like, this is how much I charge. When I started, so when I graduated, it was 2014. And my current teacher in Las Vegas was like, you can start at like charging $75 an hour. I'd never done weddings, and I don't recommend weddings for your first ever gig.
No.
Do some background music first. Weddings are a whole different, wedding ceremonies are a whole different animal. I do not recommend them for new people. But yeah, so if you're doing like per hour stuff, that's the rate that was given me, but that was also like almost 10 years ago. So I would say starting at $100 an hour, $150, you could do like the, first hour thing. I'm not telling you what to charge. You can charge more than that. But that's just when I started. It was $75 an hour. But I think that was probably too low even for the time. So it's up to you, but that's where I started from. So you can kind of, and
But
what
it
you're
would be
comfortable with.
appropriate to have it less.
Yeah, I think if you're still a student, but I think when you get to college age and you're playing in college, I think that it should be more because you're at like a higher level and stuff, which I don't know what you're doing.
Because A, you're paying for college, B, you've got the start you're probably still paying for.
Yeah,
You
you
know,
have a bunch of other commitments
You
in
have
college.
a large
So,
vehicle, you need to carry the harp in.
yeah, so you need to, decide what you think is fair for your preparation, your work. If you're still living at home, it's a little bit of a different weight than you're in college or you're paying for bills and stuff like that, and you're trying to put yourself out there. And this is a common thing for new photographers or videographers or anyone who's, getting into the business is they're like, I just want more experience. I want more clients. So I'm going to charge a little bit less so I can get more. And then like he was saying, you don't want to undercut too, so you want to make sure that you are upfront with your experience with the people. Like I'm just breaking into this sphere. Like I want to, you know, get more experience and learn more as I improve, and then I'll charge more.
And another thing you can do to get more comfortable playing in public, which is what I did, I volunteered at the hospital.
That's a great idea.
And I play there, and it's great for me to get used to playing with distractions around me and playing in public for first level. And it was great. And I only started doing this after I played in the next school year. And I just volunteered my time there because it's my dad's funeral, and I just played background music there. And I'll tell you what, background music is definitely the place to start if you want to.
Yeah, you can mess up and no one will notice, and
Nobody noticed.
Yeah.
I brought out some music I'd never seen before, and I'm just sight reading it. And it was lovely, it was fun. So,
yeah, and oh man, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, and that's a great way to also get people to hire you and stuff, is to go like play at a hospital or rest home, and people will be like, oh, I saw this harpist there, let me get your business card, or you know, things like that. It's a way to network, even if you don't think that it is. Yeah, they got rid of they took it back. Yeah, but there are other places, at least last I heard.
So it's 11 o'clock right there.
Yeah.
Wait, one more question, Bailey.
I can say till 11.
Okay.
That's all.
Bailey said, what do you guys say when you have people who say your rate is too much and they can't pay it?
What I would say is, in a nice way, just be like, hey, I totally understand having a budget. This is why I charge what I do. And if you need to look for other options, I totally understand. That's just what I say. And some people are rude. Some people are rude, and if they're rude to you, you can be rude back. Yeah.
Deal with that.
Yeah, that's a kind that you don't want, because that treatment of you isn't going to stop after they hire you. And if you stoop to what they want, you're not only missing out on what you should be making, but you're also putting yourself in just like a, you know, crappy situation that you shouldn't put yourself through. So they will find who they need to find, and because like some people do have a budget, it's totally fine. There are other options. There's nothing wrong with having a budget as long as they're not rude about it. That's totally fine. So always be nice and be like, I totally understand having a budget. This is what I charge, and this is why. I will not be offended if you look. And that's okay. Like, it's okay to say no.
I even have I haven't actually played any gigs yet. I'm just trying to learn about this. But I'll also offer people that are friends of mine or family, I'll say, I have a family friends discount. I'll give you, X% off.
Yeah, and you can give discounts at your discretion. That's totally fine. But yeah, if it's just a random person and they're like, will you take this much? Just be like, hey, set your boundaries in a polite way. That's a great question. Okay, I'm going to go on. So we're back to what's included in a contract. First off is the conditions. This is huge for harpists, as Laura was talking about. Your harp is very influenced by the environment that it's in. Your harp is your number one asset. It is expensive, valuable, and not worth risking any amount of inconveniencing someone. Okay, that is a huge thing, because I always felt like I was inconveniencing someone. I don't want to be the diva harpist. That's such a stereotype. I don't want to be that. I want to be the cool harpist that can be, flexible and do this stuff. Don't do that, okay? Don't do that with your harp. So some specifics, you'll see this in the example contracts. Weather, do not let your harp get wet. Your harp will take damage if it gets wet. And if it's in the rain and you can't dry it off quickly, it will damage your strings. It can make your strings break. Strings are expensive. It can cause warping to your wood. I have seen several harps that belly out because they were in too moist of an environment. And also temperatures that are too hot or too cold, right? That can cause cracking. Hot temperatures, cold temperatures, definitely.
Do you have temperatures? I should know this. I feel
I have
like
a
I should
temperature
know, like I will
clause.
take your wisdom.
Yeah, it's in my contract. I have a temperature clause. I think it's between 50 and 90 degrees.
If
Is
you're
that
not
outdoors?
comfortable, your harp isn't comfortable.
Yeah, or even more so.
Right.
Also protection from sun. This one I see get ignored all the time. It drives me crazy. I see harpists out there playing in the summer in full sun. That is so bad. Don't do that to your harp. Over time, that can cause weird things to happen with the coloring of the wood. It can cause cracking in the wood. Always ask for shade. in your thing. Even if they have to bring a weighted umbrella, that's something in my contract. I make everybody who hires me initial that they have all of these things.
Your harp is composed, and this is why, the harp is built with heat activated glue.
Yep.
And there's a lot of tension on those strings, and so if that glue gets soft because of too much temperature, it'll start loosening up and it'll pull your harp apart.
Yep. Also, in the sun, you can't see. You can't see your music. If you have a tablet with a screen, you can't see your screen. I've had that come close to happening. I arrived at a place and they had me in an area that wasn't in the sun, and I was like, oh, I need to go over there on the opposite side so I can be in the shade. And they were like, oh, okay. Like, they're usually fine with it. I think they understand how expensive the harp is, and you can always convey that in your contract too. Be like, you know, the harp is very expensive and costs a lot to maintain. This is why I do this. And also the flat ground thing, your harp will tip over if not supervised. Take it from me, I've had my pedal harp tip over like 4 times. Not at a gig, but while I was unloading it. But they are so tippy, you don't even realize until it happens. You could be on flat ground that feels flat and it's not. Grass, it looks like it's flat, it's not. Always have them provide something concrete, or have them buy a thing of plywood, put a cute rug over it. They can pick the rug, you know, it can match. Never put your harp on bare ground that isn't like concrete or something similar, because it will tip over and it's not fun. My harp has never been damaged from that, but it has given me many heart attacks. It was in its case, but if it wasn't, it would be dead. Yeah, it was bad. So basically, you get to be the one to decide if the situation makes you uncomfortable or if you feel like it's dangerous. Contracts put that in writing and hold the purchaser accountable. Be as specific as you need to be. There is truth behind the stereotype that harpists are divas, but it's because we need to be, because our instruments are thousands and thousands of dollars. And so you get to be a diva if your instrument is thousands and thousands of dollars. So we should be divas about the care and protection of our harps, and reasonable people expect that you would baby your harp. That's it. If they're unreasonable, then they may not, but maybe you don't want to work with them anyway. Don't risk it and set the expectation up front in your contract. I'd say that the environment the harp is in is the biggest thing, other than money, of course. Next section is cancellation. Decide how you want to handle cancellations from both yourself and the other party. Do you refund the balance, seek out a replacement yourself? In my contract, you can see it, so I'm not going to go too much into it. And just, you know, what's covered under cancellation situations. If something horrible happens to me and I can't make it on the day of or whatever, or I end up in the hospital, I will refund the balance. That's just, I don't usually refund it, but if it's after 30 days, but if it's something that happens to me, it's just fair. And I can't find a replacement. If I can't find a replacement, then they just get the balance. And the deposit is never refunded. Any questions so far about that stuff? Okay, on to provisions. What do you provide in your contract? Your seating, your own stand, your transportation, your own amplification. You want to cover things that you provide. And then also the things the purchaser needs to provide. The lighting, the cover, if you want them to feed you, break times, stuff like that. Anything that you want the purchaser to provide, you have to outline that as well. The flat ground, the shade, all of that, proper lighting. And then miscellaneous info, your website, contact information, business license number. I included mine so they can see that I'm a registered business. Insurance provider, if you have insurance on your harp, which I highly recommend. You can get some through the American Harp Society, the national one. And if you have a legal service that helped you make your contract, you can credit those in your contract as well. It makes it look more official.
I have that with my homeowner policy. It's a tack on.
The thing with homeowners policies is it will not cover the harp if it leaves the house. That's the only thing.
I wonder about that. I'll
I
check
did,
with her.
Really?
I don't know if it was like, I think it was different. I think it was like a renters. Yeah. Because I lived in a townhouse, so I needed to enter everything and stuff, right?
Mhm.
So it was a little bit different than homeowners. So when I got it, and I think, and it needs to be different insurance company, but I asked, like, okay, what if I leave my house and then you're charging me something? So I think it's worth
Okay,
asking.
probably depends.
It's
worth
because
asking.
it was a musical
I did
instrument
not.
right on the household insurance.
Oh, okay.
It's-
Yeah. So I could be wrong about that, but I do think it's worth.
It probably depends. So yeah, look into that when you're doing your homeowner insurance. Okay, next is when and where to send your contract. Send your contract as soon as the purchaser has decided to hire you, or you can send it earlier to help them see what they're getting into. I do that sometimes. I think that's fair because they have to know that they have to provide all these things. You can send your contract by email, by document signing service, or have them sign in person when they come for a consultation. So there's many different ways that you can have them sign. And this is the last kind of section, and then we'll wrap up. So how do I decide what to put on my contract? Do your research, study other harpist or musician contracts, consult with a legal service if you want to, and decide what is important to you to include. You get to decide anything that you want to be covered if something changes last minute and no one tells you. That's what you want to be covered. It can be anything. There's no such thing as there's no such thing as too specific, but there is such thing as too broad for contracts. If something is in writing and acknowledged by someone by signature and meets those requirements that we talked about earlier, it can be used as proof if taken to court. So anything that you would want to have that covered. All right. Yes.
There is a attorney in Utah that specializes, that it just uses music covered, like licenses and contracts and things. His name's Derek Julio. So I have his contact information if anyone's ever.
I think Shane Nicholson sent that to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in using a lawyer, I think that he would be a good option because that's what he specializes in, is working with musicians. You want that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that page. Okay, so make sure your client reviews the contract. Go over it with them at a consultation if you need to. I don't go over the whole contract at consults, but do review day of things. But I find that putting important things in a contract in a very like simple, spaced out thing. So like in my contract, I have the part where they have to initial. That is a great way because they'll just, their eyes will glaze over, they just read over it, whatever. But if you have somewhere that they have to initial, that will like bring their attention to it and they'll like actually read that.
That's usually review with hiring employee, right?
Huh?
Usually you review with hiring.
Yeah. And also just a couple last things that are like tips that I kind of talked about, but good reminders. Don't be soft on clients when it comes to contracts. Because art and music, like I said, are so enmeshed in our identities, it can make our identities feel enmeshed in our businesses. It can cause us to feel like we're being inconvenient or making a big deal out of something. But just don't make exceptions for contracts with clients. If you were the owner of a car dealership, would you make exceptions for customers that go outside your dealership's contract? No. So it's the same situation. You're running a business, you are making money from something, you are providing a service, you pay taxes, you provide a service, it's the same thing. You are running a business. So don't make exceptions for people, even if they try to make you feel bad. Don't feel bad. Have someone else hire you. And you don't have to take every gig. If you're talking to a client in the pre-hire phase and you get a weird vibe from them, or if they're being rude or pushy, or if the gig is one you're uncomfortable with for any reason, it's okay to say no. And you don't have to be rude about it. You can just say, oh, I'm not available at this time, or I'm unable to accommodate that this time, or I don't think I'm a good fit for what you're looking for, kind of thing. It's okay to say no. And don't assume the client knows anything, and neither party should assume the other will do anything extra not covered in the contract. Sounds mean, but like Laura said, people don't know anything about harps. They just know that they're pretty and they want to hear the music. So being overly clear is better than leaving someone to guess. So I have a little story really quick. It kind of goes along with Laura's story.
I think we all have some horror stories.
Mine was last year. It was awful. So last year I played, I was hired to play at this wedding in Park City. Probably saw my picture on Instagram. It's beautiful. It was out in the mountains of Park City. It was in the middle of nowhere. They had to like send me the coordinates to get there. And when I was in contact with the bride, she was the one who was hiring me. I was very like, because she was like, is this something that you could do? Like, I'm not sure. And I was like, well, okay, well, send me. And she lived out of state. She was like, we went here, we visited, and I took a video of the area. I want to make sure it's somewhere you can get to. So she sent me a video of the area. It was like these beautiful aspen trees, and it was like this open field kind of thing. And I was like, hey, how far would you say that it is to walk? And she was like, oh, it's just a short little hike. And I was like, okay. And I was like, I could always drive my car down if I need to go off-roading a little bit. Like I could probably do that. I've done that before with mountain things. It's just mountain things. So I showed up, and you couldn't get to it by car because there was a fence. and it was down this like, I don't know how far it was. I want to say probably almost a mile of dirt gravel down to this site. I couldn't get to it by car. And so I got there and I was like, this does not look like what it was in the video. Like the video was very hard to see. And this was before I now have a distance clause in my contract that the location of where the harp is being loaded must be within immediate distance of where the harp will be playing. So I now learned from that. But back then I did not have that. This was in August this year. So I was like, all right, well, here we go. So I unloaded the harp. I was able to find the coordinator's husband was there and helped me take it down the rocky slope. And it was fine. Like it was a little bit rocky, but he was there kind of pulling it while I was pushing it. So it worked. I set up, they had everything I needed. They had a whole entire platform. They had a beautiful, huge umbrella that was awesome because it started raining later. So it was great. They did everything there. They just didn't communicate the distance correctly. So I played the thing. It was great. Afterward, the coordinator was like, okay, we have to run to this other place, but I have someone who's going to come back and help you. And I was like, okay, awesome. I'll just start tearing down, taking stuff from my car, and I will wait for your person to help me. Also, we were outside of self-service. So I was like packing up, these clouds were rolling in. And I was like, okay, it started getting really windy. I was like, okay, so I was packing up my harp, and it started getting really windy. The umbrella that was weighted down got ripped out. It was one of those like concrete weighted umbrellas, like the huge ones that you like put in a yard. It got blown over. I was like, holy cow. I'm so glad it didn't like hit me or my harp. It blew the other way. I was like, this is a nightmare. No one was coming to help me. And I was like, I have to leave right now. It's going to start raining. And so I was like, I just have to start hauling my harp by myself up the hill. So I hauled it backwards. There is no stable ground. It is like gravelly rocks. I'm like pulling it as much as I can. This guy and his daughter were hiking and they saw me. And I was like, can you please help me? I'm so sorry. I'll pay you. Like, I need help. I can't pull this up the hill. My arm was killing me. I was so tired. It was like starting to rain. And so the guy was so nice. He's like, I got you. So he helped me push it the rest of the way. He was like, don't pay me, please. And I was like, you literally saved my life. It was a horrible day. And what's more is I got an arm injury from it, from lugging my harp. I have been going to physical therapy for my arm. And I now have, by the time my physical therapy is over, will have paid more in physical therapy than I need from the gig. So the point is, nothing is worth compromising. Be as clear as you need to. I now have a distance clause. That stuff can happen, especially if you're in Utah, where you're expected to play in the Wild West. Do not let that happen to you. Let that be a word of caution. Yeah. That would be like covered by insurance, but you can do that. So I actually, in one of the contracts I included by Hannah Warren, she's one of my friends. I'm actually gonna take a note from her because she has something in there that says if, and it kind of, because your instrument would be covered by that if you have insurance on it. But if the instrument were to fall and hurt someone else and like stuff like that, you can get separate insurance for that. But she has a thing in there that says like if you know, the hiring party or the client's guests or anything causes their negligence or damage to the instrument, they are responsible for it, kind of thing. But you can also get insurance that covers protecting people from your harm.
It could be a very expensive money.
Yeah. So just try not to put yourself in situations like that. If you're, going and getting stuff from your car and leaving your harp by itself, ask someone to stand by it, like the coordinator. Like, try to, don't let little kids touch it. They love to touch it. But just assume that the worst will happen. All right, we're almost done. Just don't put yourself in situations or your harp in situations that are outside your contract just because a client asks you to or gets upset. Your contract protects you, so even if someone gets upset about something the day of, you can just direct them to the contract they signed. Potentially disappointing a client is never worth endangering yourself or your harp. People will treat you like a professional only as far as you treat yourself like one. Yeah. And that's it. Any questions? I know we kind of went over a little bit.
Oh, I just realized that I don't think my whole contract is it's just the first.
Oh, okay, I'll fix that. Mine, I'll fix that. I'll put all of it in.
There's 6 contracts, but I think yours is just the first. Maybe I'm seeing it wrong.
I have mine. Oh, maybe it's just not looking all the way.
That's me, that's fine.
No,
Yeah,
you're good, but I think
All right.
it
Do
is.
you want me to do the thing?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, page.
made
So
something.
page design race. I have one that's like super old and really tacky looking, but this is really handy to put up in your front windshields. A lot of times you have to park somewhere that you
Where you're
can't
not
park
supposed to.
to unload. and
Always
things
put
like
your
that.
flashers on.
Put your flashes on, and this is just really helpful so that like parents don't come up and be like, start recording all this crazy stuff. So
Yeah.
thank you, Paige, for designing these.
Thank
This is just
Thank you. Thanks so much.
And Bridget's going to like honor us with one of her arrangements today.
Laura
I'm
asked
so
me to do this, so. she asked me to play my most requested wedding piece. And this is one, I arranged it, and so after this workshop, I'm gonna send an email that has the recording of this, so you people who are in person can go back and watch it. And it'll also have the link to this arrangement. You guys can have it as like a thank you for watching, thank you for coming. But
And I'm glad to be played on our number.
just the carpenter's superintendent.
do you have your sheet music available for this one?
I'm gonna send it to you.
Oh,
So you can
I'm
have
sorry,
it.
you
Yeah.
already said that.
I also have two screens.
Bridget, if I send you the file, handouts, could you email it to people who
Yes, yeah, definitely.
You'll just need to laminate yourself if you want to laminate it.
Yeah. Okay, so my number one request that I get at weddings is can't help falling in love. I get it for like 50% of bride. So yeah, you guys will all be sent this. It is easy enough for, it's like beginner intermediate kind of. It's pretty easy to read while you're playing, while someone's walking down the aisle. And yeah, it's playable on my part too. All right. And now it's nice if you can move it as many times as you need to, which is very important for walking down the aisle. So, yeah, anyways, thanks for coming. Keep an eye out in your email for the link to the live stream to be sent, and the link to my song, and the link to the cute little placard for those who were watching online and didn't get one in person. So yeah, thanks for coming. Stay tuned for our next one. We're going to be doing TBD, the day and stuff.
Thanks.
Bye. And straight. Yeah.
So